Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Banti Ganetti. I've been a resident of Cambridge and Somerville for over a decade. I'm also a member of the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition, and I will be your host for this evening. I would like to thank you for attending this second screening of Where Do Black Men Live? The film was produced by the Cambridge Black Response, and this second screening is in partnership with the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition. After each screening, including this one, there will be a panel or presentation of some sort. This film shares the stories of the most vulnerable people. These stories have been crafted from research Stephanie Guirand conducted, talking to Black men who are in one way or another rooted in this city, Cambridge. As you will see in the film, their lives are intimately intertwined with the hardships of finding housing in the city. Throughout their experiences, growing up and building out their lives, housing is a recurring struggle. Alan experiences difficulties finding housing after being kicked out of his father's home. Wesley has a hard time covering tuition and housing, and later finds a place at his partner's family's house. At one point, Eric tries to make the best of a rundown home with a negligent landlord. And these are just snippets of some of the stories you will hear tonight. As part of the panel after the film, you will also hear personal experiences. You will hear experiences from Caleb, Abebe, and Donnie Lee, as well as from Lene Harper, a transitional assistance manager. We invite you to listen with openness and care. We are fortunate to have the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition participating in the second screening, offering you a lens into some of the other housing difficulties and resources mentioned in this film, navigating shelters, finding SROs, and inclusionary housing. Stephanie's research was a spark that led to the creation of the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition, a group of Cambridge neighborhood residents, workers, and activists, individuals and organizations who have been brought together in service of a vision of a Cambridge that works for all and is truly livable and welcoming for those who have been displaced or historically excluded. The Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition is engaged in many projects to make Cambridge more livable, and I'll name just a couple. This includes inclusionary vouchers, zoning amendments, social housing, and community land trusts. To talk a little bit about some of these, municipal vouchers as well as zoning changes tied to the creation of vouchers for inclusionary housing are some tools we want the city to use to provide Black men access to new units being built in this city. At the same time, many state systems are wrapped up in carceral logic that disproportionately impacts Black men. This includes policing and surveilling residents of shelters and public housing and restricting people who have done time from accessing subsidized housing programs. Solutions such as social housing, a form of mixed income public housing, and community land trusts, a form of community ownership of land that ensures long-term affordability, may offer opportunities to build alternatives somewhat outside these existing solutions. Our panelists today will share more of the personal and housing context within which the stories you hear emerge. After the screening, members of the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition will talk about two of these projects, the creation of a community land trust in Cambridge and the establishment of a municipal voucher program to house people in inclusionary housing. If you are interested in these or any CHJC projects, including zoning and social housing, for which we don't have someone presenting today, please ask questions and talk to one of the organizers after the screening to get involved. Lastly, this film is a great opportunity to hear stories about struggles that many people never face, and many people do. The Cambridge Black Response has done us all a great favor by capturing these stories and bringing them to the community for our own collective reflection. We cannot deny the fact that the film paints a grim picture of the difficulties Black men face in housing in Cambridge, but I want to emphasize the strength of the stories and the individual men. There's no one solution that will fix these inequities, but but a breadth of changes can provide new opportunities for people to flourish in this city. Please listen attentively to a video introduction from Stephanie Guirand, followed by the film, Where Do Black Men Live? Also, if you would like to share the film with a friend or family member, there will be a subsequent screening on Juneteenth at the Brattle. Thank you, and once again, welcome to the second screening of Where Do Black Men Live? Thank you for watching Where Do Black Men Live? I hope the film has moved you as much as it has moved all of us. Now, we'll hear from our distinguished panel, who will help us connect the stories you've just witnessed to the broader work of housing justice in Cambridge. Join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage. Do you all want to sit on this side? Do you all want to sit on that side? Do you want to sit next to Lee? Do you want to sit next to Lee? Great. Do you want to scoot a chair over all the way? Great. Great. Okay. First, we'll hear personal reflections from three remarkable individuals whose experiences and work directly connect to the themes we've just witnessed. I'll introduce each one, and then we'll allow them to briefly share some words. We have Caleb Abebe, technologist and civic advocate who serves on multiple Cambridge boards and committees. His commitment to public service and equity brings an important perspective to tonight's conversation. We also have with us Donnie Lee, founder of Boston Street Union and a community leader whose own journey reflects themes of resilience and transformation that resonate deeply with tonight's film. And with us tonight, we also have Lene Harper, who brings over 25 years of experience as a transitional assistance manager working with unhoused and marginalized communities. Lene offers invaluable insight into the systems and services that intersect with the lives portrayed in the film. Please join me in welcoming them, and we'll have Caleb sharing some words with us first. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Monty. I think there's probably too many people to thank, but I definitely want to call out Stephanie and the work that led to this. I also want to acknowledge that we obviously heard from, the eight folks that were depicted here, and I just want to acknowledge that the folks that weren't able to, that we weren't able to hear from, the 40 participants, and then countless others whose stories we're not going to be able to hear today, and it's, my primary motivation for wanting to participate was just being able to share with my son that struggling is a form of strength, and the trajectory that I was going to. I was very, very lucky to meet people at the times that I met, to learn of opportunities at the moments that I learned them. I was very, very, very lucky. I think that's all. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Donnie Lee. My first time viewing the film, I did get a sneak preview viewing the film. I'm sorry. My first time viewing the film, it definitely touched me because out of all these actors that was on there, I can resonate with all of them. I was incarcerated at 19. My house where I was staying was similar to an SRO, burnt on fire. I did go to school. I was kicked out at an early age, and I have family in the community of Cambridge. I'm not necessarily from Cambridge, but on my travels of being homeless, I would come to Cambridge all the time because the Red Line. Our Wife was my favorite station. It was the last station. I would sleep on the train to just stay warm during the cold. Summertime, I didn't have to worry about that. I would go to Central Square. But just hearing the stories, it makes me feel good because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And what I really liked about it, honestly, is because I have a triumphant part in my story. I now have custody of my son. I now have a house that I can call my own. And as a black man trying to navigate through the housing system, it's hard because we don't have advocates. We are faced with problems to where we might not make enough, and then we make too much when we do something productive. And now, guess what? It's like catch-22. You're stuck in the middle. You don't know what to do. Should I go and sell drugs again, which had me go locked up, or try to do the right thing and just go without getting the housing? So you can learn a lot from this, and just I feel good by seeing it because it's like I know there's others out there, and I know there's others out there that have a story that doesn't end bad, So that's it.
Hello, my name is Lene Harper, and I hope this is on. Can you hear me?
A little closer.
Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Lene Harper, and I am the Director of Client Services for Workforce Development Agency. I do not have the luxury of having had the opportunity to work with people who have worked and have experience. My experience is in working with black men and men who are unhoused for extended periods of time, who are using substances and trying to recover from those substances, and who are trying to find safe and affordable housing. And that is something that's extremely challenging, extremely difficult to do, and it requires the need for people who are advocating on their behalf to advocate for them, in my opinion, not to do things for folks, but to teach folks the skill sets that they need so that they can advocate and learn for themselves. So I have always had to work with people and educate the folks that I'm working with to say, they're not asking you to do, they're asking you to show. And then show us how we can do what we need to do so that we can sustain that housing and that independence. And what we also need is affordable housing that is affordable, that's livable, that is not full of roaches, and it's not something that's substandard. And one of the major concerns that I have is when we find so-called affordable housing, we clump everybody in a certain area and say, this is where you're going to stay, and we're going to do you this favor, and we're going to set aside a certain number of units, and those units that you set aside are undesirable, but you're getting a benefit of having those units and that discount for having set aside those units. So be honest about it, be fair about it, and think about if you live there, is this the place that you want to live? If you had this opportunity, what would you do with that opportunity? And that's all we're ever asking. I just want the folks that we're working with to have the dignity that everybody else is asking for. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing about the difficulties navigating the system as well as the catch-22s that you're faced, either making too little or too much. And it's also, a testament to the work Stephanie's and the rest of the creative team did and the Black response in producing this. It's really amazing getting to hear these stories and see the shared experiences and the uniqueness of all these experiences and the power to share these stories with the community and with family and show that, people do come out the other side. Next, I'd like to turn our attention to a couple folks joining us from the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition, who will talk about some of the local efforts and solutions that are being worked on in Cambridge. We have Rebecca Mailman, who is an organizer with the Cambridge Community Land Trust, Margaret Brady, a longtime housing justice advocate who serves on the Cambridge Land Trust Working Group. And joining us to talk about housing vouchers and inclusionary vouchers, we also have Kalita Griffin, a community leader and family policy council representative who has been active with CHJC for 2 years, and Lee Ferris, president of the Cambridge Residents Alliance and longtime housing advocate. Please give them a warm welcome as well.
Hi, first off, I want to thank Stephanie and everyone who has put a lot of work into tonight, having us here today to talk to you about the land trust. Okay. As Bonsi mentioned, I'm one of the organizers with the Cambridge Community Land Trust. I'll share a little bit about what a community land trust is, what's happening here in Cambridge, and then pass the mic on to Margaret, who will share more. As we just heard from a lot of the powerful stories in this film, many in our Cambridge community face immense challenges in finding and keeping safe, stable housing. We've heard how deeply these struggles affect every part of a person's life and how life-changing it can be to find stability. The Cambridge Community Land Trust is grounded in a basic principle: stable housing is a human right, and people in community, not profit, should drive land use. The Cambridge Community Land Trust is a community-rooted model that acquires and stewards land to ensure permanent affordability and prevents displacement. Right now, we're in a foundational phase, building the relationships, infrastructure, and partnerships needed to carry this work forward. As we saw in the film, stable housing is not only vital for the individuals and families who live there, it also provides access to crucial community services such as schools, jobs, and health support. Beyond individual benefits, stable housing fosters stable neighborhoods, which strengthen community ties and shared resources. We heard from Quinton and Weymouth, both of whom had to move out of the city and away from their communities of support, the child care that their families could provide, creating much more difficulty for them. Stable neighborhoods create an environment that improves that capacity for care and support from within the community, making it easier to raise children, age in place, and support community members facing financial and other life challenges. The community land trust model removes land from the speculative real estate market, where property is bought and sold for private gain and holds it as a benefit for the community. In a community land trust, people can live in homes through affordable rentals or limited equity ownership, but ownership of the land itself remains in the hands of the community land trust. This allows for the housing to remain permanently affordable with decisions made by the community for the community. As we know, our community is increasingly gentrified and the voice of the community is getting overpowered, which especially impacts low-income, Black and other people of color, Indigenous folks here in our city, those who have historically faced discrimination and find harsh barriers to accessing housing here in the city. A community land trust can support its residents rather than punish them when they're going through financial hardships or other life struggles. Cambridge Community Land Trust grew out of the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition and remains rooted in that collective commitment to housing justice. While our primary focus is on housing, a community land trust can also support gardens, local businesses, open space, and community centers. Spaces that build connection, improve health, and make neighborhoods more livable for everyone. The Cambridge Community Land Trust has already been named the beneficiary in one property, and we have multiple other homeowners who are interested in transferring their properties to us. This is about more than just housing, it's about building community power and the ability for residents to shape what happens in our neighborhoods. The community land trust structure grounds community control over how the property under our stewardship is used. And hearing the stories tonight really helps grounds perspective in what we are doing and how we can move forward with the land trust. We are not doing this alone. We are part of a growing movement learning from 7 other community land trusts in the greater Boston area, as well as a few emerging ones. We have been operating with the work of a cohort of volunteers and a part-time staff. And we are grateful to have received funding from community members, the New England Grassroots Foundation, Cambridge Community Foundation, and Resist, as well as technical support. There's a lot of work ahead, and we are looking for you all to help us do it. We're holding a community conversation on June 17th at the Community Center here in Cambridge. And you can find more information on that and the work that we're doing on the tables out in the hallway, and come talk to us later. Please find us after the event. I'm going to pass the mic on to Margaret.
Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of a distinguished panel. That was pretty exciting. So I'm Margaret Brady. I've lived in Cambridge for most of the time since 1980, when I moved here with my sister, except for a brief time in Somerville, Brighton, New York City. I have been in the Cambridge Port or Porter Square, which is where I moved in 1984. And then in 1992, my sister and sister-in-law, who had taken over my apartment, were offered the opportunity to buy it from the landlord. And they asked me if I wanted to come in on it, and I said sure. And that was incredible luck, to buy a two-family in Cambridge in 1992. As most of you probably know, the value has increased enormously. In that time, I grew up with, I lived with families who had grown up in that neighborhood, since the early part of the 20th century. Generations had grown up, working class, students, and you know what it looks like today. When one of the houses on my block, it's a little dead end, when one of them becomes vacant, it flips. And so the population of my little street is very, very different today. And I got into housing activism, and as soon as I started working with the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition, I was hearing about the Community Land Trust, and all of a sudden it struck me that the most effective thing I can do is to make sure that my house becomes part of that land trust. Because I'm not smart like Rebecca and the rest of you, but I know I can do that, and I'm very dedicated. One of the things that is most exciting to me is that this is going to happen. We have these properties that are coming in. We're part of a growing movement. And the other thing is that we don't need to wait for the city of Cambridge to make this happen. We are making this happen. Though we really welcome the help of the city of Cambridge. So.
Hi, I'm Lee Ferris, and I've been active in CHJC since its founding. The Voucher Working Group, which I'm part of, is part of CHJC. And when Stephanie shared her research on housing insecure Cambridge people, we in the Voucher Working Group learned that many people were working full-time but earned too little to qualify for below-market inclusionary units in the new market rate housing that was being built in Cambridge. We realized that city-funded housing vouchers could enable people like those in the film to afford these inclusionary units. Currently, most housing vouchers are federally funded. You heard the film mention Section 8. That's what that is. Both Somerville and Boston already have city-funded vouchers, but Cambridge does not. For 2 years, we've been meeting with city councilors and city staff and working with them to pass policy orders to create city-funded vouchers. We recently succeeded in getting the city council and the city manager to provide $6 million for municipal vouchers for about 200 formerly and currently unhoused people and mixed immigration. Over 75% of these city housing vouchers will go to single people like those that you saw in the film. We're doing a good job of serving some of the most vulnerable people in our city. Our advocacy has created a powerful and flexible new tool for housing people in Cambridge. We celebrate this progress, and we also know there's a lot more work to be done. We need to ensure that the voucher program is actually implemented, that it's available as soon as possible to help the people who are most in need, and that this becomes a permanent program that helps more people in the future. So if you're interested in learning about CHJC's efforts or joining us in this important work, please come up and talk to us after the program. We invite you to join the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition so that we can do even more. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kalita, and I'm part of the CHJC for 2 years now. This movie, I just want to say, related to me a lot. I can relate to them in so many ways, from every angle. Homeless, children, Section 8. And I just want to say I am on Section 8 right now, and I'm grateful for that. I am in CDD also, too. I think that I wouldn't be able to be there if I didn't have a Section 8, too, as well, the way that it is. I also want to say that I'm grateful for the inclusionary. I do wish that there's so many things going on in the city. I wish it wasn't having to give this problem and then forget about that problem. I wish we could just work on all these problems at one time that we know of. You know, having housing, having the children, places for the children to stay, having for after-school programs, and just all these things that mostly the minorities and of low income have to suffer from. I hope one day that we can do that together. But for now, I'm grateful for the fact that the Housing Trust is trying to improve the housing here in Cambridge. And I don't know, that's all I gotta say.
Well, huge applause for our panelists. Really, really grateful to have them here today. Really thankful for their stories and the work they're doing. We've got a little bit of time left before we go outside for food and further discussion to ask some questions for our panelists. So this is where you, the audience, can come in. If any of you have questions for our panelists, please raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. And I see somebody in the back, right? And please introduce yourself and share your question if it's for a particular panelist or for people, for all of us in general.
Yes, I am an artist, and I'm right here in Cambridge, and having a very hard time finding artist housing. In fact, the Cambridge Housing Authority doesn't seem to have anything for artists. And of course, you know, there's even more of a double struggle when you are an artist of color trying to maintain a practice and not being able to have the room to be able to do that and the space to be able to do that. And I'm not getting any understanding at all from the Cambridge Housing Authority. So, you know, there are other black artists who are here in this city, and, you know, I see it as a part of the reparations struggle, because there were so many black people who founded the city of Cambridge, who were very active in the leadership of steering Cambridge, you know, in the very beginning. And so we need to be able to, in memoriam and honoring them, to be able to reach out to black artists here who cannot afford to pay 2 rents, right? Can't afford to pay for your studio and where you live. So we really need your support and help.
Does somebody want to speak to that? Yeah.
I don't know this for a fact, but I thought that most cities had like artists in residence through the mayor's office. Did you try checking into something like that? Oh, okay. Wow. That's all I had.
Yeah. I get you. Maybe Rebecca can talk to that a little, and then I know we have folks from CHJC here as well who can speak to you in the community room after. We also have City Councilor Jeevan with us, so maybe he can connect you with resources as well. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be brief. Our community land trust, the Cambridge Community Land Trust, is not focused on artist housing, but one of the really exciting things about forming a land trust like this is that we take input from community members, that we're figuring out alternative ways to house people, to provide community spaces, to provide the services that folks are wanting and needing. Like you said, Cambridge was built on so many folks who had access to space, to activities, in part because of the affordability, which has changed. And I would love to connect with you after this and talk through, just talk to you and see how you'd like to be involved. I think the Land Trust is thinking through a lot of different ways to make housing and these spaces possible. So I see it, part of our reach will be education and then learning these systems and supporting residents in informing these types of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. We have a question from a gentleman on the left. Would you like to introduce yourself and share your question for the panel?
My name is Abdul Malik Jackson. I moved to Cambridge in 1999. I moved to Cambridge after living in the South End for 25 years and then living in Jamaica Plain for 10 years, each time having to move due to either the property being taken over or me not being able to stay in the unit that was made for families, basically. TDC in the South End, and then the condo I was living in on Jamaica Way got sold. And I've been living at 808 Memorial Drive since '99. Now, with that said, on paper, we are part owners. The people who live there are part owners of the property through HRI. Now, I went to Castle Square, which is in Boston on Tremont Street. These folks, and I was going to ask you, if anybody been in contact with them, they have a 99-year lease with the city of Boston. They are on paper owners, and they have a trust of $23 million. How that happened, I would love to replicate it where I live, because we're supposed to be part owners also.
Yeah.
Now, the question really I want to put to all of y'all is, what access do people have for legal advice? Because I find that frequently a lot of the non-English speaking folks and those who understand English, they might get a lease that they fully don't comprehend. And having access to legal representation other than, what's it, Castle, Cambridge, Somerville. Yeah, castles. Other than castles, like, yeah, Cambridge, Somerville, we need access to legal services to preempt evictions. You know what I mean? Before it even gets to going to court. Frequently, people are signing documents. They do not comprehend what they're signing. You know, and it's just, if y'all could give us some advice about legal aid and legal help other than castles, it would really help a lot of folks. Specifically, I say this a lot because we are so diverse in Cambridge. A lot of the people that English isn't their first language, I always have to tell them to have their children, their college-age children, their high school child, help them either with computer stuff and or any other information that they might not be fully comprehend.
So the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition is not working on getting legal advice or helping individual tenants with their problems, but just today I was reading about last year the state legislature passed legal assistance for tenants. And so far this year, in January and February, 200 people have gotten legal assistance to fight their evictions in court. And that has resulted in 60% of them either staying longer in their units or resolving the problem that was causing them to be evicted. I don't know fully how you access the free legal help, except for that I think it's through legal services. So I don't have a new suggestion for you or a new resource. There's also the Harvard Legal Aid Clinic, and there's De Novo in Cambridge, which is one of the providers of the free legal services that I was talking about. So those are the three things that I know about that are Cambridge related. I'm sure that there are many more people that need legal help than are getting it, but that's what I know. So I probably didn't tell you anything you already don't know.
I want to add as well, I know there's been conversations about having a more fleshed out Department of Housing Stability, and I imagine that this is really what is needed here, in the way that Somerville and other places have more resources to support people, to support people in different languages. I mean, it's frustrating telling people seek legal aid here or talk to the Office of the Housing Liaison, and you pass people around in a circle and they have a hard time being able to communicate. So it's a real thing that is needed more. And we have another question from somebody here in the middle.
Hi, I'm Hillary Lustig. I'm a professor at UMass Lowell. I actually live in Medford, but I used to live in Cambridge. It's really wonderful to be here. It's an amazing film. And I study the school to prison pipeline, so I was really, caught on all of the ways that those stories showed how those men fell through the cracks in the education system at various points. A lot of them talked about being expelled. A lot of them talked about living in and out of the dorms. But I also heard that one say that he slept in MIT classrooms. So they obviously found some very creative ways of using the universities as housing. So what are some innovative ideas that you all have for how we could use these university spaces that we have that are such good real estate more creatively? Like, if you could be in charge of that, what would you want?
I do know that, not necessarily in Cambridge, but I think that it's something that has happened on the South Shore, where like Massasoit or Bridgewater have used the dorms in the summer times to start to house people so that they would have a place to stay, and then transition them into SROs. And just for anybody who does not know what an SRO is, a single room occupancy, where someone can stay and they have a single room, and sometimes it has the bathroom in it, and sometimes it has an efficiency kitchen, and other times it's just a room, and then you have the shared kitchen and bathroom outside of your living space. But I think being more resourceful and creative, as you just stated, with how we can come up with a safe, affordable housing, that's one of the ways. But then when the kids come back from college, then you have to find someplace else to be. But one day off the streets is better than no day off the street.
I just want to add to that. That's a great question, and just me looking in, I'm thinking, like, when you're dealing with Cambridge, you have two of the most prestigious colleges out here. So I would probably suggest maybe, like, when we have forums like this, maybe you guys can put that together so that conversation can actually be brought up and you can get more feedback, because if we're being honest, a lot of people aren't welcomed at MIT. A lot of people aren't welcomed at Harvard. Yeah. So this is a conversation you have to think about, like, oh, homeless people, you got to think about the backlash to where it's like students are coming in paying all this high tuition. Hey, I don't want to sleep after this guy. He might have bed bugs and he was in here. Regardless, like, everybody's moral character is not the same. So that might be a conversation that, you could speak to the Black response that you might want to have, because it's a great idea to utilize these big schools and everything else. So I just wanted to comment on that. That was a great question.
I think speaking to what you're saying, Donnie Lee, I mean, you'll walk through like the quote unquote welcome center at Harvard, and everything has tap readers to make you not feel welcome in there, and they'll go into the lounge and it's comfy seating and everything, and then it'll, in a sort of weird font, it'll say this is a stay awake space. So I think there's a lot of things institutions do to make people feel unwelcome. It's like an active decision they're making, even if they have a responsibility to provide these public spaces. But I mean, some examples of things that are going on, I think during the pandemic, MIT shared some buildings that were used as a shelter on Green Street. I think that was MIT Real Estate. I think there's a lot of discussions going on right now around like the agreements that universities pay instead of paying taxes. Universities don't pay taxes, and they're massive institutions. So I think recently Harvard renegotiated something with the city of Cambridge that's due to be negotiated again next year. So I think thinking seriously about how do these institutions give more resources in money and kind to the city. I think that's in addition to sharing their space better. I think those are important conversations. Yeah.
Hi,
question in the back.
Not a question, just a comment. I'm a social worker and I work with the Department of Mental Health primarily in Boston. I do a lot of work with unhoused folks and a lot of tenancy preservation work as well. So most county clerk's offices offer a tenancy, what was that? Okay. So most clerk's offices and most courthouses have a tenancy preservation project where you can call in. There are some criteria you have to meet to be able to get the resources, but they essentially offer services to folks who are issued a notice to quit or a notice to vacate to leave their property, and how do they navigate it? How can they appeal it? How can they, prepare, perhaps even come up with a repayment plan? It's all on the mass.gov website for each specific courthouse, or whatever the jurisdiction is for your residents. I specifically work with folks with mental health, so I know the programs that I typically access are those that are for folks with disabilities, or that we could say we need an accommodation because of a mental health, substance use, etc.
Thanks for that. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions from the audience. Question in the back.
Thank you very much. I'm Siobhan. I live in Cambridge, but I work up on the North Shore as a legal aid attorney, actually. And you're absolutely right. There are legal services for eviction defense and for similar things like that, but there is nothing at all to help people know what the lease is that they're signing. That's a huge gap. You are absolutely correct to point it out. And yeah, I think that is something that a lot of different organizations could work together and address, but just wanted to really validate that is absolutely right. That is something that legal services orgs don't provide.
Thank you.
One quick question that I have. I went to a meeting last night online about the first developers who have bought property after the 4.2 zoning was passed. This is something that some of us fought to be different than that, but they passed it that you could build 4 stories as of right anywhere, and 6 stories if you include inclusionary. People are now planning on building a 50 to 60 unit building on Western Avenue where the Spears Funeral Home is, 6 stories, side to side, front to back, and there's no review process. And the neighbors who were on this call last night were absolutely furious that we are now in this position where there can be no review. And some of us had argued in CHJC that we wanted greater density in the neighborhoods which are single-family zoned, but we were afraid that developers would come in and buy up property in the neighborhoods that are already the densest and try and do this. And sure enough, there we are. So I'm just curious about thoughts on this, and part of it is a plug for community land trusts and other housing which cannot be done in this way. But
any comments from the panel?
Well,
you're going
I guess that the
louder.
Thank you. So a community land trust would have, in the case that a community land trust was able to acquire that space, which is extremely difficult. I mean, the property values here are very high, but in the event that a land trust did, the decisions are made by community members. There's a typical model. We're still developing exactly what the land trust will look like, but there's a model where community members, residents of the community land trust, and other folks from the Cambridge public come together and make decisions over what happens to the property. So that includes whether it's residential ownership or rental models, how big those buildings will be, and we're very committed to community voices. So I don't know the specifics of that particular development, but I think a land trust is an alternative for development in those spaces. One of the challenges that we face, again, is in acquiring the space itself.
Awesome. Yeah, Lita?
I just wanted to know who makes the decisions on this. I'm learning to myself, so it just sounds like someone who's making that decision. We need to start speaking to those people in a way so that this doesn't happen, because it's not community. If you're building all these things around stuff, it's not community. If you're building big houses around and not thinking about everybody, not thinking about community. How are you considering your city a community when you're building stuff that doesn't even have community? If you're going to sit here and build, or you're going to try to invest in your community, I feel like leadership, I don't know too much. I'm thinking and hearing, and as I'm working with CHJC, I feel like we need to, there has to be some type of change in leadership here in Cambridge, or it's just going to be rich people, and that's it, and no community, no kids, nobody, just people who can make $100,000 a year and do whatever they want, and that's the way it's looking like it's going, unless we figure out how to dig into the people who's making those decisions. But I just feel, I'm sorry, I feel bad. It's sad to hear this, because it sounds like a hamster. It sounds like we keep going in circles, and it sounds like a whole bunch of people are saying they're going to do good, but I want to do good, but there is no good. You know, it sounds like you want to look pretty, but you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty, and I hope that we do better, and I hope that people start, like, when you say you want to put your fist up, you don't realize how much work and effort goes into that. And I hope that we start realizing some people that even though they say, I mean well, we got to start really nitpicking on their leaders.
Awesome. Yeah. Elections and holding decision makers accountable. I think we're gonna wrap up our panel here. Huge applause to our amazing panelists. Really incredible coming here, sharing, being vulnerable in front of everybody, and connecting with y'all. Before we wrap up, and just reminding everybody, there will be food and some tables outside. Remember to scan the QR code and provide some feedback and to the evaluation. So let us know what you think about the film. And before you get up, I'd like to also offer many thanks to everybody involved. First off, huge thanks to our panelists who came here to provide really important stories and context. Couldn't have done it without them. Thank you so much to Stephanie, the rest of the team at the Black Response who made this movie happen, had the vision, had the audacity, really did amazing community work, talking to people. Huge thank you to the creative team that made that vision a reality. Thank you to the Cambridge Public Library for hosting us in this beautiful space here, an amazing public accessible resource. Thank you so much to the tech team for supporting this event, the people providing childcare outside. We have childcare at this event. Isn't that great? And also, thank you so much to the sponsors of this event, the various community orgs you can see, and funders. You can see their names on the screen. And last off, thank you so much to all of you for coming here and for connecting with community and watching this amazing film. There'll be some more screenings on Juneteenth. There'll be a screening at the Brattle Theater. Invite your friends, your family to that one. And there will be a virtual Zoom-based screening as well that's really accessible later on. So thank you so much for coming. And outside in the community space, there's room to get connected with the orgs, continue the conversation, and there's tables with food, and you can line up on both sides to have some amazing Haitian food.
And we want you to know, if you thought Stephanie did a fabulous job, her mother made the food. So it is really incredible food to eat, and we also want to say thank you to Bunty.